answer this particular question.
Because the first thing to ask yourself is even whether or not the dead body qualifies to be owned by someone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because when we say someone owns something, it means that you have rights over it, and one of those rights is that you can alienate it, you can transfer it, you can do whatever you want to do with it. So is a dead body or human remains capable of being viewed as property?
Yeah.
Because if it's capable of being viewed as property, then someone owns it.
Must own it. Yeah. Okay.
If it's not capable of being viewed as property, then what kind of ownership are we talking about here? Maybe it might not be ownership, but just the right to handle it and make sure that the person gets a befitting burial and that. But for instance, if you see dead bodies being transported maybe from one jurisdiction to another as cargo, it will be tagged
as cargo of no value,
of no commercial value.
Oh, wow.
So it has value.
It has value,
but the value is not
commercial
value.
It can't be traded.
You cannot. So it's not an item that is tradable.
Okay.
So the reason why, for the purposes of the transport, it will be tagged as an item of no commercial value. So it's not dutiable.
Okay.
Because there's no commercial value. It's just.
Okay.
But it has value.
Yes.
So who has the rights to that value?
Okay.
And if you look at our law currently, it will take its roots from a number of pronouncements that will come to a conclusion that it is owned by the family.
Okay.
And even that does not even solve the problem. Because if you say it's owned by the family, are you talking the extended family or the nuclear family? But if you look at the case law, and if you look at the writings of, for instance, renowned jurists like Oleinu on these matters, it will be pointing to a broader family. So we can start preliminarily by saying that if we look at our current jurisprudence on the issue of the dead body and who owns it, it will be the family. And in this case, the family beyond the nuclear family.
Okay.
So it will belong to that larger family out of which you came from. And with recent developments, migration, urbanization, people now living in estates, myself and my wife and children, the issue of family will also have to be looked at again. But last on this, as to who owns it also, is the fact that the current understanding as to saying that it is the family that owns the remains, the human remains of a dead person, is not based on the generality of the law we have. It was based on the customary law of a particular group of people.
Okay.
So it was based on the Ga customary law.
Okay.
So we have extrapolated that understanding and applied it as a general rule.
Okay.
But we can say emphatically, in answer to your question, that when it comes to who owns the body in relation to the Ga people, it will be the family.
Okay.
And that is because it is based on the Ga customary law. So it is that Ga customary law that has been giving blessing to by our courts to say that it is the family that owns the dead body. But we've tried to apply this principle across as a general rule of law. But it will have its issues as well. So we can start at a very non-contentious level and say that it is the family. And that it is the family that has the value in a deceased member.
And this is the extended family.
This is the extended family.
Okay. Clement, Mr. Clement, why is this even an important conversation for us to be having?
Well, it is important because culturally in Ghana we attach a lot of significance or importance to matters of the dead. So, for example, when you go to certain parts of this country, when someone dies, it's such a big matter. It's such a big matter. Sometimes we mourn the person days and weeks, put the person in states. Do a lot of things around it. And sometimes the kind of farewell you are giving tells a lot about the kind of person you are. And so it is a very culturally sensitive thing. And for a lot of people, how they handle the corpse of the dead person puts them on a certain standing, and it gives them closure depending on what situation we are talking about.
Okay.
So given that it's a very sensitive matter, people will want to lay claim to the body of the person, particularly so if in the person's lifetime they feel the person has contributed so much to their lives, or the person has been so good to them or so good to a section of the family or society. So it's a very important matter. In recent times, I've personally had to deal with some of those matters regarding friends and people I know tell you that this person died, but we want to be in charge of the funeral or the body, and the family is saying this. What should we do? Can we do this or can we not do that?
Yeah.
In fact, there was one incident where the guy said, if push comes to shove, they'll go and do their own funeral and leave the body for the family and things like that. So it's become a very important matter. It's always been, but it's become so important and sometimes contentious in these days because of the growing phenomenon of nuclear family, like what Clement just said. If it were in the past, it wouldn't have been a big issue because the extended family that we generally agree to the owners of the corpse, were largely in charge. But now, because of the modernism and westernization, a lot of people focus just on their nuclear families, and the contribution of the father or mother is largely towards the nuclear family. Of course, even in societies where they inherit matrilineally, a lot of people, because of this focus on nuclear families, have begun making or writing wills so that they direct, their
What should
properties
happen afterwards.
to their nuclear families and things like that. So it's a very important matter. Just to touch on a few of the things Clement has said, whether the corpse is property or not is an important matter that must be dealt with. I recall a matter, in the 17th century in the UK or so, which had to do with a gentleman who was going around stealing, sheets from corpse or buried corpse. The matter came up, and the question was whether he stole something or not, and if he stole something, who was the thing for? Because the thing must have an owner. In the end, it was resolved that he didn't really steal anything because the thing had no owner. The thing was no property, and it had no owner. That was about 400 years ago.
Yeah.
And so later on, we also had a situation where somebody died. The coroner's people took the brain out, preserved it, did some autopsy with it, and later on, after the body was buried, they disposed it off.
Okay.
The family of the dead person came up saying that why did they have to dispose it off without their knowledge, etc. The court ruled that it's not theirs, it's not property, it's nothing. So the coroner's office could rule or could actually direct that be done. So that brings up the question whether it was property or not, and who it belonged to. That's common law, more or less. Like Clement rightly pointed out, a lot of the decisions or a lot of the way we have viewed the matter of corpse or dead bodies is from case law and drawing inspiration also from customary law.
Okay.
And so what has happened is that there's a particular case referred to, Nikwe versus Oko, which is a Gamashi case. A father dies, the family of the father, patrilineal family of the father, wanted to take charge of the family. And often these things happen when the relationship between the nuclear family and the extended family is not the best.
Strained.
So the mother and the daughter sued the family head in court. The family head almost simultaneously also sued, so they combined the two cases. And the court had to decide on the matter. The decision of the court, incidentally, former Chief Justice Georgina Wood was the one who decided that. That was a 1990 case.
Okay.
Then Justice Lutrot. She used to be Justice Lutrot before she became Wood. So she decided that the extended family, call it the wider family, should own the dead body, or the burial responsibility of the corpse of the dead body will largely rest with the extended family. And in fact, the other guys were arguing PNDC law 111 that the law says that if somebody died, the spouse and the children should inherit the lion's share of the person's estate or property, self-acquired property. The question was whether the corpse was a self-acquired property of the dead. So if it's a self-acquired property of the dead, then you could inherit it. But if it is not his own self-acquired property, then the question of inheritance, did not arise. But what the court did, which was quite beautiful, was that the court said the family should take responsibility. But because the children are also part of the wider family, the views of the children should be considered.
Okay.
The views of the children should be considered. However, said because the woman is not part of that family, the woman is treated separately, or the spouse is treated separately.
Okay.
Because the spouse, properly speaking, is not part of that family, even though the spouse would have given birth to the children who would become part of that family. So the views of the children must be considered. And so that will take it out from the realms of law into maybe sociology or family relations. So now, you all have to swallow your pride, or the kids especially. So you judge and see what can be done. In fact, somewhere around the case, they said that the man had paid for his grave way before he died because he wanted to be buried at the Osu Cemetery, and he wanted to be laid in state in his house at Nkandao. So he wanted to be laid in state in the house. The court said that that could not be the case because the family, the wider family, should determine that.
Right.
So the point here, therefore, is that the corpse cannot be inherited necessarily. It belongs to the wider family. So the wider family has to make the decision. However, with the, not assistance, but with the input of the nuclear family or the children, because they are the children. If there are other interests, that interest should also be considered. So basically, that is the nature of our law as we speak. In fact, the court also said that because the person was dead, the person ceased to have control and authority over its own body. And so once you cannot control your own body, you cannot decide what happens to your body after.
No, I was actually going to ask that question because you're talking about self-acquired.
Right.
And so I was going to ask that question at the point of death, then what happens? Anyway.
Look, so actually, I mean, a good way to bring in, because Selom touched on inheritance as well. So you can, as a human being, write a will on how to dispose of your self-acquired property.
Yeah.
And once you execute a will, your extended family cannot say anything if the will is properly executed.
Okay.
Can you, as part of your will, contain, have provisions on funeral instructions? For instance, how you want to be buried, what clothing you should wear.
Or if you say, I want to be cremated.
All those things. If we stick with the case of Nikwe, then it is clear that it will still be left with the family
to decide.
And at this point, it moves from the realm of law to the realm of family relations, societal relations. So in Africa, in Ghana, we are very much that we respect the dead, we respect the views of the dead, we believe in ghosts. So we want to do the wishes. So even though you will write a will to indicate that I want this to happen, I want it to go this way, I've appointed this person, I've even paid all the expenses for my funeral, I have this money, it will still rest on the extended family to say that, okay, we agree, or we will want to vary, and sometimes to even engage in such variations, you enter into the intricacies of customary law where some rituals will have to be performed, all these things. So, yes, you can inherit whilst you are alive, but if you're dead and you lack control, it is your extended family that has control.
I see.
Now, issues will come up. Someone dies, he's taken to the hospital, the closest and nearest to him are able to procure the necessary documentation, death certificates, burial permits, all under the law. They take him to the mortuary, So then they have control. So the one who goes to lodge and the one who is holding the documentation that shows that this person is dead and this person will be buried on this day with the burial permit and everything, they have control. And most of the time is those who are near the nuclear family who are
Yeah.
able to get these documents.
Yeah.
And then that is where the tension starts. Because in law, they've been given a certain document to show that they have control
Yeah.
over this deceased person. But then at custom, it is the family that will determine how the burial is performed. So you might be having physical control because you took the remains to the morgue, you're holding
Yeah.
the death certificate, you have the burial permit. But it is the family, the extended family, that will decide on how that body will be disposed, even though you can show that you have control. And when the family thinks that they want to also assert their quote unquote ownership rights over the deceased, the family can petition for a death certificate to be issued them as well, and yours cancelled, and a burial permit issued them as well. So
Wow.
what is important here for us to note is that when you fall dead, according to current Ghanaian law, it is the extended family.
Okay.
And sometimes, depending on the family relationship, the extended family can say, okay, children, tell us what you want to do. And then they will go with you. But it is largely the extended family. And it shows even in how we announce our funerals, the obituaries. It starts with the
The
tracing.
family
Actually, when you
heads.
read the obituaries, it's
Yeah.
a trace of a certain lineage.
Lineage, yeah.
And they'll trace it up and those who are, and then they will have people who are vested, have vested interest.
Yeah.
The chief mourners.
Yeah.
So this is all at custom.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's also a difficulty in finding out whose custom. Which custom? People have moved to stay in Accra
Yeah.
their whole life. Now you want to apply a certain custom. Most of the times, we'll have your customary law aligning maybe with your religious beliefs. So there's no conflict.
Yeah.
But if you have a situation where your customary law is at variance with what you believe and what you practice, then these
becomes-
issues come up. So
yeah.
it is clear-cut answer, yes, we know. It is the family that will have the rights of
Okay.
burial.
All right. So you know what? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and then we'll continue from where we left off. All right? Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Meet the new Mrs. Chima.
And I'm not sure say your husband too go happy if you hear the filler way I get for your dog.
I still have your underwear in my office drawer.
I could never imagine you would end up being my stepmother.
Anybody with the capacity to give you great joy can also bring you insufferable pain.
All right, welcome back. And it's still a question of law. And of course, the hashtag is question of law on all social media platforms. The WhatsApp line is 0204-447-033. We've been talking family issues with this, with especially handling the dead, dead bodies. Who does it belong to? Does it belong to the nuclear family? Does it belong to the extended family? And so on. And one of my panelists, Clement, was just wrapping up his thoughts in the conversation. Yes, so Clement, you were saying...
Yes, so
as we-
quickly,
as
I
we
was saying
close
that
off.
by way of summary, it's we can say generally, based on our existing law, that when a person dies, the body belongs to the family. We have said that this legal principle was arrived at based on a decision looking at a Ghana custom.
Yeah.
So now the question is, how will this apply to other tribes? Basically, in law, we'll say that this is of persuasive effect.
Okay.
So it is for those other tribes who hold a contrary view that a deceased person's body does not belong to the extended family to make that argument.
Okay.
But the decision in the case of Nikwe will be persuasive, and you will need to show why at custom this is not the case. So that is fairly settled, and anywhere this issue will come up, the first thing you hear is that it belongs to the family. So the body belongs to the family, but anyone can organize a funeral.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because you don't need the body to organize a funeral.
Okay. Okay.
But we are used to organizing the funeral
The body
with the
there.
body.
A body. Yeah. Okay.
So, and as Salom indicated, there are instances where, because of the rift, a group will say that we're doing a funeral on this day.
You can have the body.
We will
a
do what we
funeral.
want to do.
Yeah.
Then you family, you can have and then do what you want to do. We don't want to be part of it. So having or organizing a funeral necessarily, who can do it, is not the same as who has rights over the body.
Okay.
So anyone, I mean, you can be a close friend and decide that this day I want to organize a church service
Yeah.
in memory of
Yeah.
this my
Okay.
friend.
Okay.
And no one can stop you.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you want to do that with the
body.
body, then you will not have that right to organize the funeral, because if you want the body.
Okay.
So it is the family that is at the heart of this. And even with instances where people have moved out, it is only, and they'll tell you, it is only when you die or there is death that you realize the extent of your family and persons who are your relatives.
Yeah.
Because once you're alive and you're moving around, yeah, people are seeing you.
Yeah.
No one is saying anything. Touch wood, something happens, then you know, this is our relative. Then you will see their role, because once you're alive, and if you read the writings of Olin, it will tell you that once you are alive, the family allows you to fly and achieve and become great in their name. But once you fall, then you become
Yeah.
the property of the family. And religion has also played a role and added another layer
Yeah.
on performing the funeral, the rites, who will keep it. Modernity has also added another level. Now we have funeral homes
Yeah.
where you don't go and do the customary rites of birthday and all those things. So all these things are adding to how we view
Okay.
who has control
Okay.
and who does what. And increasingly, we are getting to a point where I think it will be the nearest and dearest who will have to make decisions and will be more amenable to accepting the funeral instructions of deceased persons.
Interesting.
Yes, so just to add a few things. So the decision, it's largely that of the extended family. But because of economics and other things, members of the extended family also have their nuclear families. And, you know, they will first of all want to focus on their nuclear families. So if you have money, you have some money, you will have to make the decision whether you want to throw that money at organizing the funeral of an extended family member when the nuclear family is ready and able to do it.
Okay.
So in the end, it comes to the economics. The nuclear family often, when they are well-to-do, are willing and ready to take up the funeral and do it with the corpse and everything. So normally, if there's a rift, you will see that the family people would have some wealth, or they have some money, and they want to do it. The nuclear family also tries to assert its authority and say, the person was our father, was our husband, we have to do it. Where the extended family doesn't really have anything, more or less, more often, they go along with the nuclear family.
Okay.
But again, it is as a result of conversations and discussions, so that the extended family is supported by the nuclear family, because that was where the person really was. The other thing has to do with the thing we talk about, biological wills. There are people who can say, okay, this part of my body or this organ should be donated to to medical science. There was a case I was reviewing some time ago. The gentleman died. He said his body should be donated to the teaching hospital. I think he was a lecturer or a doctor in the hospital. Should be donated to the teaching hospital.
Yeah.
That was in his will. He signed documents. He went through the process to ensure that was done. When he died, the family said no, they won't take it. They want to have the body and bury the body. So it's like we can't do a funeral without the body. It's incomplete. You want to have the body, you want to go around the body, you want to see the body buried. Then that gives you closure. The family made argument. They got into some slight tussle with the investor, the medical school. And the medical school just had to leave the body because they didn't want to engage in that. Because the family had come and said, what the person wrote or willed, could not stand. They are the family, they want the body. So the body was given to the family. So that happens.
Yeah, but actually under biological wills, you can donate portions of your body when you die.
In fact, people even
it's
donate eggs.
Yes, and it's only your close, your nuclear family that can object to it. Any other person who wants to object to such a donation must go to court.
Okay, so you can donate parts of your body, but you cannot. Can you donate your whole body?
Medical science. You can, if you say, take my body and use it for the study of pathology. I mean, when we're in the university, we had our friends who were doctors cutting cadavers
every day. They'll be going.
And they actually, you'll be surprised that there is a time in their training as medical students where they organize funerals for these cadavers. So they treat the bodies well. I mean, maybe the person wants to contribute to
medical
advancement in knowledge and science, and does such a donation.
Okay.
It is only the nuclear family that can say we object.
Object that. Okay. I see.
But if the extended family wants that body, the extended family must go to court and indicate why they want that body. And it would have been interesting if the medical school had engaged the family in that matter for us to see how it happened.
One situation I find interesting though is, let's say the extended family is in Ghana. They live in a village somewhere or a town somewhere, right? Now, one of the children from this extended family travels abroad. And over a period of 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the person has become extremely successful, done very well, never really came back home, but stayed in touch with the family. Kept sending money back and all of that, but gave birth to all his children, 6 of them. They are all living outside in some other country called Zamunda or something, And then all the children have also done very well in their lives, but they are not in touch with their extended family. They know of their existence, but they're not in touch with them. Now, if the father who left that extended family to go live abroad passes on and says, I do not want to be buried back home in Ghana, what then happens? Can the extended family, if they find out that he's gone but he's not yet been buried, what agitations can they make and what claims can they make?
So this raises an interesting issue in an area of law we call conflict of laws.
Conflict of laws.
Conflict of laws.
Okay.
So
of laws.
Of laws, yes.
Okay.
Like laws from different jurisdictions.
Okay.
So you are having your customary law. You have relocated 40 years. We now want to find out, have you assimilated and gotten into another custom where you have now, you see as your home, quote unquote. The law will say your domicile. Have you so assimilated that we can, when you speak, we can't even place you
within our context?
Within our context.
Wow.
Those are the considerations that will go on in determining which law. But at the heart of this is actually not law, but economics. If the extended family is well-to-do, they will fly over to whichever jurisdiction because they will be able to. But here, you have indicated that you don't want to be buried back home. You want to be buried wherever the event occurs. But once you die, Ghanaian custom says, belong to the family. Family will say, okay, we agree that we've not seen him. Actually, there are people who don't know him. So you can bury him there. But per our custom, you must do certain things, bring us certain
Yeah.
articles or
Okay.
elements
Okay.
from his body
Okay.
to show, so that we can also organize something here. So that now becomes more of
A discussion.
a discussion,
Okay.
sociology than. But if it's a clash of laws, what we need to now establish is, has this person abandoned this custom
Okay.
and assimilated?
Into
It can
another.
even be intra-customs, where you've moved from one area
to the other.
to the other, and
Within
have-
Ghana.
within Ghana here, and
Okay.
you have so assimilated
Okay.
that if we ask, what is your personal
Personal
law? It will be the law of your current
new-
location,
okay.
where you are living,
Okay.
as opposed to where you hail from. So your current location will determine your personal law, and that personal law will determine how you were treated post your death.
I see. So if we run through very quickly, once a person dies, the decisions.
He loses authority over his person.
Okay.
And so that authority is now absolutely vested in the wider family.
Okay.
However, the children of the deceased are also part of that wider family. And so from our jurisprudence, the views of the children
Yeah.
must also be considered in the funeral preparations of the deceased. However, the final decision rests with the extended family or the wider family. We have also said that it's a question sometimes of economics. And because sometimes the wider family is not ready or doesn't have the money to organize a funeral, it amplifies the voice of the nuclear family, who often are ready to give the departed a befitting funeral because the person was closer to them, more or less, and things like that. We've also talked about biological wills. We've talked about, what happens to a dead body in another jurisdiction when that person has some connection with another jurisdiction. And Clement rightly mentioned the issue about personal law and whether the law of domicile of that person has changed. So these are all considerations we can make. But once it's established that the personal law of the person really remains, the maybe Ghanaian law,
Yeah.
more or less,
Yeah.
the extended family will still have, they may fly there, but they could still object. They are still in control. So that law doesn't change much. It depends on whether the personal law or the domicile of the person has changed. If that hasn't changed, then the status
So if
quo.
the
in this
person
case-
is living in, let's say, Texas, for example, and has lived in Texas for 30 years, but still considers himself
That is it. So
Ghanaian.
once he considers himself Ghanaian,
Ghanaian,
the
then
domicile
it
hasn't
has not
changed.
changed.
Yes.
The intention to remain
Yeah.
Ghanaian,
Yeah.
hasn't changed.
Okay.
And-
If that person says he was going away forever, he has nothing to do with Ghana, and he demonstrates that over a long period of time,
Yeah.
then we can say the domicile has changed because he would have expressed an intention never ever to return.
Actually, interestingly, how do you show that intention? You're in Texas, you're still eating fufu.
Yeah.
You wear your kente.
Yeah.
You speak to
buy
people in
You're
your-
Ghana.
always sending money
You
home.
speak to people in Ghana.
No, it's not even. You're
You're
eating
all-
Ghanaian food, you're
Yeah.
dressing.
Yeah.
Oh, moba, mombre me prekese.
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
that is the
okay. The
intention
demonstration of
that
I'm
you have
still
not abandoned.
Okay, okay.
Because
okay.
at every time.
Application.
Anyone who is dear and near is able to organize a funeral. Because a funeral is just a remembrance. The burial is different from a funeral.
Yeah.
And for convenience, we've put both together so that after the funeral, we'll go and bury the person.
Yeah.
But where it becomes very contentious, solutions can be reached where funeral will be held separately. And even there's been instances where there's been a burial, but an application is made and the body is exhumed because
Wow.
certain things were not followed.
Okay.
Because that is also possible. So the burial in itself and who does the burial is not conclusive. So post the burial, there can still be issues where we say that you didn't have the right to do this, and it will take a court to give an order, supervised, and the body will be exhumed. Maybe a wife makes an allegation that something was not done properly, are not autopsy report was not done or it was forged, something, the court will want to come to the end of that. And
Wow.
an order can be made. So it's not as if, well, death is certain, taxes are certain, but when it comes to the intricacies of how you deal with the dead body, we can conclude on this program that it is settled that the extended family has a key role to play. So in as much as we are getting nucleated in the way we do our things, we should try as much as possible to also draw links with our extended family, because that's where the solutions lie.
So instead of fighting with the extended family, I think it's wiser to collaborate so that you give the departed a befitting funeral. Because I think the objective in the end is to give the departed a befitting funeral. That's the reason why the nuclear family want to own it and own the process, and the external family to want to say no, we want to own it and do it the way we want to. So in the end, what is important is the two sides must engage. The nuclear family especially may lose more if they do not engage. If you have some contribution to do it, try and find a way of influencing the process. But that cannot be done, having a hardline position, because the law really is in favor of the extended family. So you have to collaborate so that is done. So your views and all of that are incorporated. Maybe the wishes of the dead, you can find a way of imposing, using that word advisedly, on the external family, so they know that the dead wanted this done for him. And in reverence to the dead, I'm not sure a lot of people will want to
Go against
derogate or deviate so much from the dead person's wishes.
But okay, so I guess I'm asking from a more of a naive or an ignorant point of view, but if I say this is what I want, whilst I'm alive, I have capacity, and I'm saying this is what I want. When I no longer have capacity, I wish for this to happen. Why is the law not protecting those wishes?
The law protects your self-acquired property.
Okay.
Okay. When you are not your property.
Okay.
That's where the law.
That's the understanding.
That's how the law
Okay.
looks at it or sees it. You are not your self-acquired property, and when you die, whether you are a property or not, becomes an issue that must be looked at again. So in that case, you have no control really. The control then lies with your extended family.
Okay.
They have maybe capacity. They have authority. They can deal with it the way that is deemed fit.
Makes sense.
So the issue is actually more of capacity.
Yeah.
Because
at the time when you're gone,
at
capacity.
the time when you're gone, you lack capacity.
Yeah.
So if you say that this should be done for you, and it is not done for you, what will be the repercussions? Who will be held responsible?
Yeah.
So you don't that and that is why the law will not give effect to something that you cannot hold anybody
accountable.
Where there's a right, there's a duty. Where there's a duty, there's a right. So we cannot just say you want this to be done for us. It is out of respect that it will be done.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so it's time for the docket.
Sweet mothers, how could we ever forget you? This year, on Mother's Day, we plan to do quite the festive opposite. What better way to show out for our beloved matriarchs than an entire evening dedicated to celebrating the phenomenon that is motherhood. Mama's boys and mama's girls, for all their love and sacrifices, here comes the ultimate Mother's Day gift. Picture this, a flavorous Ghanaian spread with countless mouth-watering treats, just like Mama's cooking. A glitzy dance floor serenaded by Mama's favorite tunes just for Mama to boogie. And a stunningly intricate portrait of Mama just to remind Mama how truly beautiful she is. Join us on Sunday, the 14th of May 2023 at 4 p.m. for an enchanting evening of appreciation and enjoyment. for our feminine support systems. The venue is at the City Gardens, number 5, Ola Hansen Lane, Tesano, and the rate is a cool 350 Ghana cedis. It's going to be an evening of Ghanaian food, dance, and the celebration of motherhood. So book now and secure a seat for Mama at the A Portrait of Mama Mother's Day dinner now. For more enquiries, call 020-5973-973. The Portrait of Mama Mother's Day dinner is powered by City TV with support from City FM and is sponsored by Dano Milk and Tasty Tom and supported by the Juice Guy and Verve du Vernet.
Picture if you would what life would be.
Day 4. Now this promises to be a long day of discovery. Waking up at the Ganas Hotel and enjoying a sumptuous breakfast, we are ready. Experience a display of fashion and all sorts of artifacts and memorabilia. Conversations with patrons, with drivers, with vendors. Then we head out to Paga. At the Pagapio Palace, a beautiful reception awaits with all the dance and pageantry. Watch out for Day 4 Part 1 of the Heritage Caravan Diaries. All right, so it's time for us to go into the docket. And today on the docket, this one here says, hello, a question of law. Are there revised laws concerning distribution of spousal properties upon dissolution of marriage? For instance, if you went into the marriage without any property, but you helped him or her build a house by supervising the work that's being done, or you both agreed that one party would use his or her money to take care of the home whilst the other builds the house. Is this something that can be considered during distribution of properties? Kindly educate me on the laws regarding these and other scenarios as well. Gentlemen of the law.
Well, the law on marriage, divorce, it's moved from a point where women and even children only had to be fed and taken care of by the man. So they go to the man's farm, they will do everything, but the man owns everything.
Yeah.
Just have to feed them, shelter them, everything, and the man has everything. Move to a point of substantial contribution, where the law says that if the woman is shown, or the spouse is shown to have contributed substantially to the acquisition of some property or the property, then based on that substantial contribution, that spouse could have a portion of the person's property. Move to what we call equalities, equity, etc. That further grew to what we call the 50-50, position. So started from, Mensa and Mensa, that was the former, what's the name, the Bafodado, to Brafo and Brafo, that was Gateba. And then now moved to Mensa and Mensa again, another Mensa and Mensa, and Duce, and I think it's moved a bit. The situation now, or the law as it stands now, is that marital property or property acquired during the subsistence of the marriage is deemed joint property, unless there was an intention, right from the onset, that this property is being acquired solely for this purpose. Just before this latest position, once it was acquired during the subsistence of the marriage, it becomes joint property. And so the other side largely was also to benefit from it 50%. The only exception to that is if the property was acquired by means of a gift. If it was a gift, the other side really did not contribute. If it was by inheritance, maybe my father had some property, I inherited it, you can't say you have 50% or a share in that. But once, we were married, before the property was acquired, as it stands now, I have a share in that property. The current position is that we will have to look at what it is before we determine what proportion exactly. But it appears the 50-50 decision largely stands, but you have to show a few things so the court knows that indeed you made this amount of contribution. But surely you have a stake or you have a part of the property that that the other side would have acquired. So that generally is the position. The position keeps being fine-tuned every now and then with a few nuances here and there, depending on the particular situations. So that is where it is. Property acquired during the subsistence of the marriage is deemed joint property. Largely could be shared 50-50, but a few considerations could be made along the line here and there.
Wow.
No, so I mean, clearly, Selim has touched on almost all the points, but clearly, what we need to appreciate is that the law has evolved to a point where the parties in the marriage will all have a certain interest in property acquired.
Okay.
Previously, it was the man, head of the house.
Yeah.
Garden of Eden, Adam, helper. We've gotten to the point where both are on the same level, and the recent Land Act clearly states that if the landed property is acquired during the pendency of the marriage, the presumption is that we own it jointly. You can acquire it and even put it in your name. But if it is during the pendency of the marriage, that's the presumption. But if your intention is that you want to own it separately, then you must take steps to let it show that this is separate. This is not part of
property
what will
acquired
fall
under marriage.
during marriage. So we've moved to now recognize, because most of the time what the courts will recognize as substantial the woman decided that he will retire or resign from his work as a banker and stay home, take care of the kids,
so that
you will be able to
go and work.
Substantial contribution. It might be that contribution is in the nature of money. So the courts will look at a number of things. So in marriage, once a property is acquired and there is the intention of sole ownership is not that evident, the presumption is that it is for us. And if there is supposed to be a sharing at the point of a divorce, then that becomes a property where the court will look at to share amongst, and we've moved to equity, not more equality, looking at the equities of the time.
So like Clement rightly said, married people could decide at some point that, okay, use your money for this, let me use my money for this, because we are building the home together. So often the money, the woman's money is used for the soft things, maybe feeding, buying clothing for the children, etc. And the man's money is used for projects, and often the man will put his name on the house, sometimes both. So in a matter like this, if it so happens at some point that they have to part ways or they have to divorce, everybody sees that it's a man who built the house because it's a man's money that was used to build the house. But the money the woman invested in the family, you can't. It's not tangible. You can't actually see it. So if you were to go by that, then it means that the woman would have been disadvantaged. That's why the law says that, once you are together, the property, the presumption is the property was jointly acquired. The woman, so indeed, Doche in Mensa and Mensa went as far as saying that even if the woman didn't contribute a penny, but the woman was at home for you, cooking, washing clothes,
making it possible for you to do what you did.
Keeping the home, so you have peace of mind to work and acquire the properties. He went to the extent of saying that woman deserved to have, was entitled to a 50% of the property you acquired. So I think that gives quite some comfort to women especially. But it can also be the other way around, because we have instances where women are richer than the men. So the woman goes ahead to acquire properties, etc. The man is the one who is in the house and who does a few things. In that case, the man gets to benefit. But often, the men are more financially...
because there was a case recently where the court ruled that, this was not in Ghana, where the court ruled that the woman, because she was a celebrity, and also her music business was such that it was bringing her millions, right? She would pay, substantial amount to the man, plus monthly stipends. There was a whole thing that was involved in it, and I was fascinated by it because I hadn't heard that kind of a thing before.
No, I mean, if we are not almost there in Ghana, we're getting there.
Okay.
That we're no longer looking at fixed roles and fixed responsibilities.
Okay.
At the end of the day, we're saying that if you decide to enter into this enterprise of marriage, during the pendency of marriage, if property is acquired, it is seen that it is jointly yours. If you decide to go your separate ways, it will fall to be shared as matrimonial property.
All right.
I mean, just to make a final point on, sometimes couples, haggle so much over my name. You didn't put my name on the document. You didn't do that. You didn't do that. The law right now, it doesn't really matter. What matters is showing that property was acquired around this time, and that there was no express intention, that it was intended to be a solely, acquired property. So your name may not be there, but once you can prove that it was acquired during the pendency of the marriage, and there was no intention for one party to own it solely, it becomes joint property. Like Clement said, the Lands Act now, you could have your name on the landed property, but before you dispose it off, your spouse must have a say in that. It's all geared towards protecting spouses and protecting families.
And spouses, not women, not men.
Yes. Spouses.
I like it. I like
Very
it.
necessary. Maybe unless we will have this spousal bill before Parliament passed. But that bill hasn't passed because of difficulties like this.
Fantastic. Well, let's take a look at today's legal trivia.
Legal trivia. Did you know a nursing mother is entitled each day to an hour of extra break to nurse her baby while at work? This can be found in Section 57(6) of Labor Act 2003, Act 651. Take note and do the needful. That will be all for our legal trivia today.
All right, so that's it for the legal trivia for today, and that's it for our show today. It's been very interesting. I thought it would be a rather morbid conversation, but it's rather been vibrant and very educative.
Matters of the dead are very sensitive. And once matters like that come up, you can expect a lot of.
Let me say a big thank you to my panelists today. Thank you to you, Selam Adonu, and to you, Clement Akapama, as well. Of course, Selam is a private legal practitioner, and Clement as well, but he's also a senior law lecturer at the Gimpa School of Law. We'll be back next time with a question of law. Keep watching City TV. My name is David Kwekusechi.
On Footprints this weekend, former Chief of Defense Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces, Air Marshal Napoleon Ashley Larson, and Wing Commander Patrick Nelson Sobojo continue their stories on their roles in the Kutu Acheampong coup and his time in government.
I was the ADC to Akufo-Addo's father in '69.
So how was it like being an ADC to the then president?
He was a very nice man. I had no problems with him. If any problems was with his madam. I always remember the occasion when they wanted to install him as the president, the rehearsal. We were rehearsing in the State House.
Yeah.
Well, that the sword of state is a very heavy sword. Have you carried it before?
No, please. No, please.
Very, very heavy. And so they passed it on to old man Akufo-Addo to try and go to do the ceremony. He nearly went. So I jumped and grabbed it from him immediately. so that he wouldn't fall down. You know? So I said, this time I've been away for 1 year. I don't know how my boys are doing. Let me go and see how they were doing. So I went with about 7 officers. So I landed in Takoradi on the 12th. The night of the 13th, the coup took place. I made the coup and said he has appointed me chief of defense.
No, you were on your random visit.
Officially, because I've been away for 1 year.
And
now
you
I want
had
to go and
no
see.
idea that there was a coup taking place.
I didn't even know where Akachampon was then.
I had been called to a meeting at Tema, where I met the Champon, Agbo, and Salome, and Ba.
Yeah, Major Ba.
Yes.
Major Ba.
This was the time they were planning the coup. It was the morning after a dinner that I met him. He didn't even know I was in Takoradi. I met him at the Air Force Base when he was doing his
inspection.
As the Air Force commander.
So people thought he knew about the coup, but he didn't.
Join your host Samuel Atamensa as he engages Air Marshal Napoleon Ashley Larson and Wing Commander Patrick Nelson Sobojo this Saturday on Footprints at 9 a.m. with a repeat on Sunday at 4 p.m. only on City TV.
Footprints is proudly sponsored by Creamy Plus Evaporated Milk.